Regular council meeting to order. Mr. Tom Fazekas, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call.
Becknick?
Here.
McKinney?
Here.
Shaver?
Here.
Saracy?
Here.
Bertone?
Here.
Can I have a motion to approve the council meeting that's held June 7th, 2022, minutes from the July 5th council special meeting, and minutes from the July 5th public hearing on the tax budget?
Mayor, I'll make that motion right after we make a motion to excuse Mr. Heights.
Thank you. I forgot
Second.
about that.
Becknick? Oh,
Aye.
right, wait a minute, let me do this right. Bertone?
Aye.
McKinney?
Aye.
Becknick?
Aye.
Shaver?
Aye.
Saracy?
Aye.
Thank you.
Now, Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the special meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Bertone?
Aye.
Saracy?
Aye.
Becknick?
Aye.
McKinney?
Aye.
Shaver?
Aye.
Oh. Nope, I think we're good. From our solicitor, Mr. Jim Lyons.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. For me this evening, the first thing on my list is I have a noise variance request. The new football coach is asking for a noise variance from 11 p.m. on July 31st to August 1st at 1 a.m. August 1st is when I think contact can officially begin with his players, and he wants to have the marching band and do a big thing under the lights, and I think by 1 a.m. they should be wrapped up. I think they'll probably be wrapped up more around midnight. He does plan to send a letter around to the residents in that general area. So,
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Becknick?
Aye.
McKinney?
Aye.
Shaver?
Aye.
Saracy?
Aye.
Bertone?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor,
yes, sir.
and I'm sorry to do this. I think when I said special meeting, I didn't include the regular meeting. You want to do those too?
Sure. Why don't we just do them all? So a motion for the minutes from June 7th, July 5th, special council, July 5th, public hearing on the tax budget.
So moved.
Second.
Bertone?
Aye.
McKinney?
Aye.
Becknick?
Aye.
Shaver?
Aye.
Saracy?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, are those times right for the football? It says 11 p.m.
Yes.
Yes, because we're going to start 11 p.m. on the 31st and go into August 1st, which
Oh.
then becomes midnight 1 a.m.
I just thought that was kind
I
of
was
late.
confused as well.
I
Got it. Okay, the big one on the agenda tonight, we've been talking about this for quite some time. I've asked CT to, Rich Eiffelise from CT to come and join us this evening to give us an update on the bulk water purchase that we're going to be placing on first read for consideration of passage with council. Painesville's going to be putting it on their agenda as well. We're kind of at the end of a 2-year journey here in decoupling from the water plant and going with a bulk water purchase. Rich is way more fluent and knowledgeable about all of the inner workings of what this project really kind of entails. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. CT helped us attain, I think, a little over $2 million in funding. So I won't get too far into the weeds here. I think I'll turn it over to Rich at this point, and then I may have some comments after. But before you go, Rich, I want to thank you, Clyde, Sean, Jennifer Brown, right, for your guys' dedication and really a lot of good work, not just in engineering, but in asking a lot of questions that I had, a lot of questions that Amy had throughout this process. I think you put together a very good package. Certainly grateful for all of your efforts to this point. So with nothing further from me, Rich Eiffelise from CT Consultants.
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor. Is that on? That's on. Thanks very much.
Yes.
I won't be able to put my head through the door next time I. But good evening, Council. As the mayor said, you have first reading for Resolution 2022-53 to enter into an agreement with the city of Painesville. My objective this evening, since it's on first reading, is to try to give you an overview of what's been a year-long process to reach this point. I might be repeating myself since I was here a number of months ago discussing this with council at that time, but nevertheless, you have a 3-page handout. I promise not to read it all, but just overview it with you if you follow along with me. And feel free to interrupt with any questions that you may have. In the summer of 2021, the village advertised. We prepared a request for qualifications for 2 basic options. The village at that time wanted to seek qualifications and proposals to either sell the entire water system or purchase bulk water. Three qualified bids were received from Aqua Ohio, Lake County Utilities, and the city of Painesville. After months of reviewing those bids and some negotiations involved, we've reached a point now between the 2 communities that there's an agreement in principle, and it is now being brought forth to council for review, comments, and ultimate approval. The city of Painesville is concurrently bringing it forth to their council, I believe next month, in their first reading with the city of Painesville. I listed a few general points just to give you a little bit of background and why this initiative makes a lot of sense for the village, and also to partner with the city of Painesville to purchase bulk water. There's a lot of benefits that I'm sure some are very apparent to you already. So generally, listed here, your demand, your average daily demand is around 235,000 gallons a day. So that demand has seen a trend of going reduced in the last 10 years generally. The first thing we wanted to ensure ourselves was enough capacity that the city of Painesville has in producing and providing with water. The data from Painesville indicates they have surplus capacity of almost 4.5 million gallons a day to deliver. So it's over and above what the village needs. So the supply is there. The quality of water is the same, still coming from Lake Erie. Their source water is Lake Erie, as your water is Lake Erie. The treatment process they utilize is very much the same. The quality of the water is very much the same. The only difference will be, if this were to come to fruition, is the delivery of water will be coming from the south than the north. And what we're doing in preparation for that is we completed a hydraulic model of the village's system, and developing a unidirectional flushing program, so that we avoid much of what could occur with breakup of water coming from another direction through the pipes. So that's something we'll prepare for if this comes to agreement. In doing the projects, in getting ready for something like this, I mentioned we built a new hydraulic computer model. So when I say that is we've basically simulated how the water system works on the computer. So we actually tested, we ran hydrant pressure recorders out there, and we modeled the water system so we could simulate what occurs if you had a fire at this location, or if you had a supply over here, and then analyzed it for delivery of water from Painesville. The second improvement that the village authorized, and now are almost completed, is improvements to the interconnection with Paynesville. You already have a physical connection, which was one of the driving forces, I think, in endorsing an agreement with the city of Paynesville. That physical connection exists on Richmond and a vault on the south side. That vault is void, however, of pressure regulating valves. The pressure on the Paynesville side is twice the amount of pressure you need on the village side. So we need to regulate that pressure to avoid or mitigate any type of breakage in laterals and water lines on the village side. So the improvements to the vault include pressure regulating valves, and then if this agreement goes through, a master meter. The intent is then you would become a master meter customer of the city of Paynesville, retaining your ownership, your maintenance, your billing of your water system. That conversion allows you to decommission your water treatment plant, and eventually, should you so choose, to demolish the water treatment plant. Bulkhead the intake, which is a problem for the village if you don't do any more improvements to your system. So the construction drawings for that vault improvement are complete. They're complete because it still provides you with an emergency connection, regardless of whether you choose whatever direction you choose. You have no emergency connection. You've never had an emergency, no, I shouldn't say never, but as far as I know, Mayor, from the history here in the village, you have no connection if you had failure at the plant to deliver water. So this is a prudent investment to get this done. So in taking advantage of the regionalization and the demographics of your community, in March, we assisted the village and applied for and nominated the project for what's termed a principal forgiveness. Principal forgiveness is a fancy word that EPA's used. It's a grant. We were successful to fund this vault improvement to 50%. So 50 cents on the dollar is a grant for the physical improvements for that vault. In addition to that, in completing the hydraulic model of the village, and the delivery of water potentially from Paynesville, you have now the ability to replace the tank instead of rehabbing your aged tank in a residential district. We've also included funds, and we have awarded 50 cents on the dollar to build a new elevated storage tank to the volume that you need. You are currently, by EPA standards, undersized for firefighting when you have a peak day demand. You have 200,000 gallons in the air. You're using 240,000 gallons a day on average. Firefighting situation that takes 1,000 gallons a minute will deplete that tank when you have maximum daily flow at the same time. You need to increase the size of the tank, we recommend, and to take advantage of these dollars, build a new tank is obviously the recommendation and what we've been able to achieve. Now, going back to the fact that there's now decommissioning the plant, your only connection, your only source of water is Paynesville through Richmond Road, Richmond Street. A secondary connection is advisable. It's a guideline, it's not a mandate from EPA. It's a recommended guideline for best practices. And so we also applied, and you also received 50 cents on the dollar to build a secondary interconnection with the city of Paynesville. And the most desirable location is St. Clair Street, across the Grand to Skinner Avenue. In preparation for all of this, we've met and coordinated, integrated all of this with the city of Paynesville to ensure all of it works on their side as well. And it's acceptable at this point. We just met again with the city manager here with Painesville. So that's kind of a summary of what the general points where we're at. On page 2, what I mentioned here, the grants and funding, that's paid for 50%. You're going to pay for the other 50% should you agree to pursue these capital projects, the capital improvements, to take advantage of that funding. They offer a 0% loan for up to 40 years on the local share balance, should you proceed with the projects. What complicates this even for is the mayor started off with all these moving parts, is that you have under contract improvements with Union Industrial at the water plant. You're doing that because you're under notice of violation from EPA. You've been under notice of violation for some time from EPA, and it's involving the structure, primarily the roof. And the improvements were designed, they were contracted. We've had discussions with the contractor to perhaps cancel the contract and then negotiate a change order to do the vault improvements. So we don't have to bid anything out, go back. The funding complication comes in because you garnered Ohio Public Works money on the water plant. What we're attempting to do was ask the Ohio Public Works Commission to divert those funds to one of the capital projects we're doing to see if that would be acceptable to them. To complicate it even more, you received a small government funding, much to your success. You're receiving funding and good applications and good projects to rehabilitate the tank we're just recommending to replace. We've also seeking diversion of those funds to the new tank as opposed to rehabilitating the old tank. Don't have answers on that yet. I'm not optimistic because it's two different projects, and the Ohio Public Works Commission is not as they have, because of their bonding, I believe it restricts their ability to divert funds. I don't know. Jennifer Brown is more of our expert on the grants and funding, but those are the considerations. You haven't started any work to rehabilitate your tank, but it's a matter of just turning that back and not using those funds, and then instead pursuing perhaps the new elevated tank, since we're receiving 50% funding, grant funding. So those are the issues with the EPA in terms of with Ohio Public Works Commission, I should say. With the Ohio EPA, since you're under notice of violation, I've had verbal discussions with them until we authored a letter. The village authored a letter in May, and we just received a response today from the agency regarding canceling those contract at the plant and foregoing the notice of violations that come under the Ohio Revised Code and come with penalties and fines. Instead, consider the fact that the village is negotiating an agreement with the city, and it seems acceptable, very acceptable to EPA to do just that. The tentative, the rough schedule we've communicated to them and to the city of Painesville is January 1, 2023. Knowing that each community is going through 3 readings for ultimate approval, then we need to make improvements. As I said before, the vault, we need to improve that before we can open the valve and get water from Painesville, and then decommission the plant. The lead time on some of that equipment is an unknown, supply chain materials. So we're adding several months. We're projecting the end of the year. The city found it, and the village found it acceptable, January 1, 2023, perhaps as the date when you'll be receiving water from Painesville, if you all in agreement. So there are significant costs, the elevated tank being the most significant at over $2.5 million. I'll let the mayor speak to a site. I don't know if that's been discussed in terms of potential site of new tank, should you choose to proceed with an elevated tank. Obviously, the secondary connection we've talked about at St. Clair is the most attractive. In negotiating the crossing of the river, we will be interfacing with the county engineer to attach it to the bridge, as opposed to going under the river. That's an overview. What you have before you is, first reading is the actual agreement that's gone through a number of iterations with both communities and the respective legal counsels that I initially drafted. It stipulates a rate, $3.57 per 100 cubic feet. We did negotiate with the city and they agreed to pose increases only when they have inside rate increases, as opposed to requiring the village to have 3%, 4%, 5% increases every year, which was originally was what they had imposed. The city was agreeable to their rate increases when they do inside rate increases. The only caveat to that is the outside rate is 50 cents more than the inside rate. Those of you who are not familiar with surcharge rates for communities, water outside, serving outside corporate limits, it is not uncommon for them to be 33 to 50% surcharge on the inside rate. So my recommendation to the village was this was very attractive at 50 cent, and that's embodied in the agreement that you see. I'll stop there. Covered a lot, and I know there's got to be some questions related to the agreement, related to the overview that I gave you. And if it's not this evening, I'll certainly be available for the next readings of this resolution at future meetings.
Mayor, just a quick question.
Sure.
Yeah.
How often do they have inside rate increases? Do we know what the history is?
So I just requested from the city if they had something already on the books. So they have rate increases of 2% through 2024. The impressions I get from the city is that there is a very small incremental increase in the cost of producing water versus the amount of revenue they would generate from the village.
Mm.
So that would perhaps start to stabilize rates. That's the only reason I think the city would do that. They have ample capacity. It won't take them a lot to produce 250,000 gallons a day. They have a plant that produces 7.5 million gallons a day. So it's a very small incremental cost in production versus the revenue received, which we believe will probably stabilize rates for some time.
So I'm sure the residents are going to ask us that question, and
Yes.
And maybe dig in deeper on what the history is. Do we have a history of the last 20 years? How many times they've raised?
Actually, I do,
Yeah.
and I can provide that. There's a survey that the Ohio EPA does on rates across the state for every
Right.
community. So they're published, and I can provide that to you. Painesville's rates are on average is lower than the village currently.
Well, and it's another important reason why we want to have that, because we can do a side-by-side comparison. And Mayor, I think we probably have some sort of a public presentation prepared on slides that show those
The
sorts of
rates?
things, right? What are the rates?
Right.
What do we
So-
pay right now, and what is this going to cost us? And you did a very good job in this of explaining why we're doing that. Maybe we kind of skinny that down a little bit so it's just bullet points that somebody can pick up on a postcard, for example, and understand why we're doing this.
We will be putting, so I think the next two council meetings, a half hour before council, we'll be having some public sessions, and then that's where we'll lay a lot of this stuff out. Is we'll have PowerPoint presentations, we'll have handouts, et cetera, to explain a lot of that type of stuff. So yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
It's good.
Thank you. Any other questions of Rich? And again, I know it's a lot to digest. Like I said, we've got two public hearings or public meetings. They're not public hearings. They're public meetings scheduled for the next two council meetings. If we feel that there's a need to have additional meetings, we certainly can. The reason for the introduction of the legislation at this time, because again, we don't really have a cutover date in mind, but the funding model and the grants kind of dictate that we need to have the agreement in place. And Rich, is it 4.7 mil is what the total number is?
4.4
Is 4.4 mil?
to be corrected. I have a meeting with the EPA tomorrow.
Okay,
If you
gotcha. So we
recall-
still don't know what the final number is. So let's just
Correct.
call it north of 4 million, and half of that is granted. The other half would be funded through the 40-year loan. Our current rates can support most of that. We're probably going to have to tweak in the upwards direction. The last 2 years, we haven't passed on the 5% that we were doing for the previous 5 years. And we very purposely, as a body, didn't do that because we knew we were negotiating and trying to see if we were going to stay within the water business. So we'll be laying all that out too, I guess, as far as the financials go. Chris and Amy and I talked Friday and Saturday about that. So we feel very comfortable and confident that our current customer base can support the improvements that need to happen. So just to recap, we don't have enough firefighting capacity, so the water tank has to be replaced. There was 3 positions that CT recommended. One was down on the river. That doesn't lend itself to economic development. One was at the intersection of 6th and East, right there by the skate park. That's not really all that desirable. And then the third was over here, probably diagonal from where I'm sitting behind the service department here. So this is probably going to be the location, but CT's got to put together some engineering on that too, and I would expect that might be ready for the public meetings as well, correct?
Yes, a
or is that
rendering,
what-
yes.
a rendering?
Rendering, Mayor. So,
Right.
and that's the driver to this, I should, if I may, Mayor,
Mhm.
the caveat on all this money, and that's what requested a meeting with the agency tomorrow, is that plans for a permit must be submitted by October 31st.
Right.
For all the projects. And it's going to be very difficult to do. We can do it, but we're going to need, obviously, the village to move forward with those 2 projects pretty quickly. The tank and the secondary connection. Again, the secondary connection is recommended, it's not a mandate. I'm carrying a budget of $1 million for that water line because we have a lot of unknowns crossing the river there. I'm very hopeful it'll come in a lot less than that. Oh, and the water line on St. Clair is where you don't have water line, is what the mayor is referring to.
Right.
You know, opening up that, have water there, where you don't have, kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, bringing water there and getting a secondary connection to the city of Painesville. But the driver on both is October 31st submitting plans, a permit by the end of the year. We have to be under construction, contract awarded before June 30th, 2023, in order to receive all those, the 50% money.
Mayor, two things
Yes,
with
sir.
this too. So one of the other reasons why we're doing this, that we don't forget it on purpose, but it's because we've managed it over the years, is our intake in Lake Erie is not the best.
Nope.
We're at a good time right now because the lake level, the cycle it's in is high. And when it cycles down in another 10 years, it will be at its low again. And it's so low. I mean, we're probably with 6, maybe 7 feet of water cover on that intake currently. When it gets down to about 2 or 3, it fills up with sand and all of the sediment that comes out of the Grand River because it's over by headlands and it goes out that way. And that's a challenge for us. And we had a number of about 11 million several years ago, before the way the world twisted, right, to replace that. And that is not something that's easy to swallow. So that's a consideration as well as all those other things.
Right, and speaking of the intake, so if the intake would fail, it's $11 million to replace. If we would qualify for the 50% forgiveness, $5 million on 40 years, our customer base doesn't support that. You know what I mean? So there is no there as far as the intake goes. The intake is just shy of 100 years old. The plant was 1926, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we've got an age plant. We had the intake valve fail on us this year to where had we not had some agreements with the union industrial folks, we almost couldn't fill our raw water well back in October to where we wouldn't have had water coming into the village. So that's what put the interconnect that we're presently working on with the city of Painesville now into high gear because we almost, again, couldn't bring water into the raw intake. Which leads me to the second interconnection. It's an absolute must to have. I know it's not a mandate, but having that second source of water now after getting, if we do decide to go the bulk water way is a must to have because again, we got to have that redundant source of water. Mr. Bertoni talked about it in the last meeting. I remember that fire well, and I know we were out of capacity. I'll never forget stepping on the fire hose, a 4-inch fire hose on East Street on the day of the fires, and I pressed right through to the pavement. So we don't have the pressure that we need in that type of an event. So changing our, again, almost 100-year-old tank over to a newer tank just makes perfect sense to me to do. So between the loans that are out there, the grants that are out there, and our customer base, this is fully payable and doable. The timing's right. There's no gun against our head. Ohio EPA certainly is supportive of getting rid of single water purveyors. They want the regionalization. Ohio EPA has been very, very accommodating with the HAB plan that they've given us some time on during this. They didn't have to. They could have forced the $375,000 fix there. So again, and a lot of that's a credit to CT, their knowledge of these types of systems. But I think we've even taxed them a bit, especially with the financing piece of it, because there's a lot of stuff that really no other communities have ever asked before. So, again, I thank you. And I'm sure there may be questions this evening. I don't know what I can answer this evening, but I will be able to probably talk in a little more detail at the next meetings. Mr. Patone?
Yeah, the other half of what I was going to say, and to actually back up again what you're saying about the day of that fire, when we were within a couple of minutes of losing the village, we were praying that that tank would hold out because we were talking about trying to dynamite the river to get the ice away so we could actually dump a pump in there to continue to fight the fire. If not for all the brave firemen that were working that day, that wouldn't have happened, and they were able to turn the tide, so to speak. But the other part of what I was going to ask you was, I'm sure with your plans, you understand that we have 2 very historic landmarks in the village. And in 2025, one of them will be 200 years old, which is the original lighthouse, and the other is going to be 100 years old. And so you're competing with that as soon as you put this landmark up here, because when you get off the highway or approach Painesville, the very first thing you're going to see, other than the water plant the other direction of the old power plant, is our water tower. So it can't be just a water tower. I hope we understand that, right? It has to compete with those other two and should be the best one you've ever produced. And when I see it here, that's what I'm going to expect that day. And if it's not, you'll know it. So please. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a challenge.
Okay, if nothing else, thank you again. Appreciate your guys' efforts. I'll turn the meeting over to Amy Kosick at this point.
Okay, well, we received our community development block grant from the county. I'm happy to report that we received $245,000 to redo our streetscape on 3rd Street from High to Eagle. Our consumer confidence report for the water plant has been distributed, is on our website. Also, in the spring of this year, the village posted a position for a part-time executive assistant to support the work in the administrative office, which includes, among other things, our tourism efforts in the village. I'm pleased to report that as of August 1st, Mike Mannery, who retired as administrator from Painesville Township, will be joining our administrative team as a part-time project manager and report directly to my office on numerous projects that we are undertaking for the village. We are also finalizing the job description for the part-time fiscal officer position, and we should have that posted shortly. We do have an internal candidate that's interested in officially applying, and I will keep you posted as we move forward. Also, Village Fest this year will be September 3rd from noon to 5, and prior to that, there will be a golf cart parade from 11 to noon. It will be closing down 3rd and High Street from 4th to 2nd to have our Village Fest event this year. I've included all our articles from the News Herald in your packet. And that completes my report.
Thank you. It may get lost in all the water talk, but I just want to thank Amy and council too, because they approved the pay ordinance to bring Mike on. We were looking for an administrative assistant, and Mike approached us about what we were thinking and this, that, or the other, and we sat him down for an interview, and I couldn't be more excited to have two highly qualified professionals in our office now. So if you think we're busy now, just wait, I guess is all I could say. Mike will hit the ground running. He'll need very little hand holding, and the village is very lucky to have a candidate of his caliber. I mean, some of the folks that we interviewed for the job were highly qualified as well. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you for stretching us, as you always do, to make us better. And congratulations on the funding for the 3rd Street section. I told you when you got the High Street section, I didn't think you'd get it. So there's nothing I'm ever going to tell you that I don't think you'll be able to do. So keep doing what you do, Amy, for us. We're very fortunate to have you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of Amy? Okay. From our engineer, Mr. Clyde Haddon. Good luck following up Rich.
Actually, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think you've spoken enough for us tonight. I don't really have anything more to report.
All right, thank you. From our interim fiscal officer, Christine Page.
Okay, in your packages, you have the financial report for June. It also includes a full print of your revenue status and appropriation status. I figure I'll do that at this point, most likely quarterly, because it's so extensive and it's a lot of paper. So if at any point you want one and it's not in a package, or you just want one, you have a question, just call me and ask me. I'm happy to print those out and give it to you at any point. We are reconciled through June. It actually took me 4 hours this time. I'm so excited. So we are reconciled through June, as we should be. Let's see here. For the month of June, your revenue was $388,895.80. Your expenditures for the month were $249,115.81. Your reconciled cash balance is $3,187,156, or $3,187,156 plus 56 cents. As a side note, investments are they're doing pretty well. We made just over $2,000 last month. And I'm thinking we might even come close to doubling it this month. The rates have shot up. I checked Star yesterday, and Star has gone from I think they were at about 1.3, 1.4. They're, as of yesterday, they're pushing 1.7. So you're making money. I'm putting money over there as quickly as I possibly can. We do have money, cash that we can operate from. First Federal has the operating checking account, and then there's an investment account there. So we're keeping enough money there as our, as our go-to before we go and pull money out of anything else. And even First Federal's rates are improving quite nicely. A couple of our regular, regular banks that you've dealt with for the long haul haven't come to that, haven't come to that place. But the majority of them are starting to come up, and Star is shining. They really are. The interest rate is great. So there's all of that in your package. The reconciliation is there for you. The check register is all the way at the back. I believe there's a receipt register there for you as well. Okay. Yes, receipt register and check register at the very back of my package. Questions? Concerns?
I have none. Thank you, Chris.
Uh-huh.
From our zoning inspector, Mr. Dave Radishy.
Zoning report should be in your packets. We had 3 zoning permits for the month of June, 2 housing dwellings. Those are the 2 lots on East Street that the BZA had done some variances on to get 2 new homes built and a change in use. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Radishy. Anyone got any questions of Dave this evening? Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
2nd Street, behind the creamery. Can you give an update on that property, the giant hole?
The property owner pulled a zoning permit August 24th, 2021. That will come, if they don't get started in the next month, it will expire. I issued a letter to them recently stating that they need to, if they're going to get the building permit done, or they need to get the, ask for an extension. They also requested that they fill in the hole as part of the, if they don't, as part of the extension on that permit.
Can we ask that they secure the fence around the
We've asked several times, and every time we've asked, they've come out and done it. I will ask again if it's an issue again.
It hasn't been an issue yet, but it could be an issue, a safety issue. It's concerning to me.
I agree with you.
And I guess I would like to understand how much time we're giving these people.
According to the Fairport Harbor zoning code, they have 1 year to, once they pull a zoning permit, they have 1 year to act on that zoning permit. So we have to give them that 1 year, and then we need to move forward. And when they pulled the zoning permit, they pulled a demolition permit, and they pulled a new house permit. And they requested that they not be required to fill in the basement because they were going to get started on their new home. But as supply chains and cost of material have gone up, they have not been able to finalize their plans and get their building permit. And so we've been got stuck in between a rock and a hard place on that particular issue because of the world we live in right now.
Mayor?
So it sounds like in August, we can ask them to fill in the hole
That is correct.
if they haven't started construction.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think we have precedence on this matter also on 2nd Street. And Mr. Searcy, you'll remember this clearly because we took the gentleman to court and we won. I think he spent time in jail. Very similar situation, tore down a house. It was next to what was at the time bed and breakfast. Do you remember that?
I can't remember.
Near Pop Residence. In any case, they tore the house down, left a hole, and left a small little barn structure on there. And we had similar types of discussions and excuses. And at the time, we pressed very hard with zoning that every weed that was over 6 inches, we cited them for. They tried to pull permits for that as well. There was no intention at that time to build that, and then he became very defiant. I think we have precedent. We should look up that case and we should go back after it. I feel like there is no intention to build. The property is it's full of noxious weeds, which are a violation of our ordinances. It's a health and safety risk to the village, which is also a violation of our ordinances. They're using our ordinances against us to stretch this out, and supply chain has nothing to do with safety. And as soon as something happens to a child in that hole, nobody's going to give a shit about, excuse my language, about the permits and the fact that we gave them the ability to not fill in that hole is what's going to come out, and we're going to be liable. I think we need to take a look at this. We need to engage Mr. Lyons and do everything we can to press every violation that they have and compel them to start that process or sell the property. It's been long enough. We sit here, I know Christina has asked about this several times, as other council members have and the mayor has, and we are running up against fall. It's the end of July, middle of July, I guess, 3/4 of the way through. And so in a short month and a half, it will be fall. And then the next excuse will be we can't build because it's going to get cold. And then it's going to be June and July again, and we're not going to be anywhere except talking about they reapplied for the extension because it was cold, and we had to grant it to them. We got to stop playing this game and cite them and get it over with. Build a house. It's more valuable with a house on it than it is as a vacant property. In many ways. But it's hurting. The creamery has put a lot of money into that property and draws a lot of people to the village of Fairport Harbor. We've been asking for, I've been on this council for almost a quarter century, and we've been begging people to come in here and doing all kinds of things to get something to happen. So we have something that happens and people really invest, and we have people come from all over. And then we have the Pompadour investing, they're buying properties next to them, and when people come to town and go to those establishments, they have to drive right by that wreck. And we should not accept that in any way. So we have a job to do. Let's get it done.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Mattone.
agree.
Thank you. Okay, on old business, ordinance number 2022-35, adding chapter 1133.19, wall murals. That'll be for consideration here. Safety committee reports, Mr. Saracen.
The reports are in your packet. Chiefs, do you have anything further than what's on the reports? Does anybody have a question about the reports?
I do not. I know you guys weren't here at the special meeting. Mardi Gras felt like it was a pretty good Mardi Gras. It didn't feel as maybe busy for the safety forces as it has been in the past. I don't know if you guys want to give an update, but we certainly want to thank you for your forces' efforts for the weekend.
I believe that the Mardi Gras this past year was just one that I haven't seen in many years. I mean, police actions were almost none. I mean, that was required. We saw a lot of families. We didn't really have any disturbances, and I believe it was just a very successful Mardi Gras. And on a public safety side, it was a very different feel.
Yeah. Thanks for clearing traffic as quick as you did on fireworks night as well. I know it was a bit of a challenge.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Chief? No, good. Okay, thank you guys again. So I need an ordinance to pay the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Bertone?
Aye.
Becknick?
Aye.
McKinney?
Aye.
Shaver?
Aye.
Saracen?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 2022-35, an ordinance revising 1149 definitions and adding 1133.19 wall murals. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion
Bertone.
Aye.
Backnick.
Aye.
McKinney.
Aye.
Shaver.
Aye.
Saracen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could
Yes,
we
sir.
go back to the pay the bills? So I know we passed it by way of a motion, but I don't think, since it's listed as an ordinance, evidently you've given it an ordinance number, Chris?
We always give it a number,
Yeah.
but
But since it's listed specifically as an ordinance, I don't recall that. We have to suspend the rules. Now, we don't have to do it as an ordinance, but if it's listed as an ordinance, then it goes in the ordinance book, okay? And so, because it has that number, I thought kind of traditionally it was just a motion to pay the bill.
Yeah. No, Amy and Lisa and Renee prepare this. I do not.
Okay, well, right, okay, but I think we have
Otherwise, just a
to,
motion.
I'll make a
we have to
motion to,
suspend the rules. is
how
what we-
about if I make a motion to amend the agenda?
I'm good with that.
Right, why don't we make a motion, because we don't want to set a precedent. Let's make a motion to, I need a motion to
Amend
Okay.
the-
amend the agenda
Agenda, yeah.
for item 1 on legislation from ordinance to a motion.
So I'll make that motion to amend the agenda.
A lot of A's.
How's that? Baby, buggy, bumpy. So we're amending, right?
You got a second? Bertone.
Aye.
Backnick.
Aye.
McKinney.
Aye.
Shaver.
Aye.
Saracen.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then I'll make a motion to confirm that we were paying the bills by motion.